Good morning. Thank you for joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-134 Countdown Status Briefing. Joining me today is Jeff Spaulding, NASA Test Director.
Good morning.
Joe DeLay, STS-134 Payload Manager.
Good morning.
And Kathy Winters, Shuttle Weather Officer.
Good morning.
We'll hear from our panelists and then we'll take questions. Jeff.
All right, thank you, Candria, and good morning to everyone. And I'm really happy to be back here today as we are back officially into the launch countdown. We did just pick up the clock a few hours ago, and we are counting and working on some of our avionics checkouts right in the beginning of the count as we normally do. So real pleased to be back here again to ready the vehicle for Monday's launch of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on the STS-134 mission. It was 2 weeks ago today, actually, that we had our last launch attempt, and we needed to stand down. We did have and found an issue with our auxiliary power unit number 1, the B heater system that's associated with that auxiliary power unit wasn't functioning properly, so we did end up scrubbing that launch and backing out of the count and start working some of our troubleshooting over the last couple of weeks, which is now complete. During that time frame, we ended up removing and replacing a load controller assembly in the aft fuselage. That was number 2 of that boxes. We replaced that. We did also replace a wire that goes from that box up to the heater string in question that we had an issue with, as well as a couple of splices and thermostats during that time frame, because our troubleshooting led us down that path, indicating that the issue was along that wiring path that we had there. So all of those things have been changed out. All of the retest of all of those systems are complete. We had to do quite a bit of other retest and reconfiguration of the systems in order to get to that box, as well as once we took it apart and replaced it, there were a number of other systems that we had to do a test and checkout on, and that's all complete and is good, and we're ready to go from that perspective. Let's see, our countdown clock, as I mentioned, picked up just about 7 o'clock this morning, and right now we're working those preparations and throughout the day in anticipation tonight of getting into a pad clear around 11 o'clock once we get done with all of the checkouts of the boxes and the other preps we need to get into those operations. And at that point, we'll start our checkout of our ground pyrotechnic systems. And then later on, early morning on Saturday, we'll begin loading the onboard cryo tanks with cryogenics at about 4:30 in the morning, as I mentioned. Once that's done, that requires a pad clear. We'll reopen the pad around 1:30 in the afternoon, work some more preps towards the checkout of our space shuttle engines in the afternoon, and some of the planned inspections of our external tank and boosters will start about 7 o'clock on Saturday. So we'll have a pretty full day on Saturday once we get back in the pad, getting back into work. Once we'll work throughout the night, and then on Sunday we're going to power up our orbiter ground communication network as we always do, and do an end-to-end test of all the systems from the orbiter itself back to Kennedy here and also to the other centers. And that'll happen about 6:30 in the morning on Sunday, followed by our final flight crew equipment stowage operations, which is about 8:30. We'll work our preps throughout the rest of that morning, and we're going to retract the rotating service structure back away from the vehicle at about 12 noon on Sunday. And then we'll continue working and configuring a lot of our other ground and flight systems throughout the day in anticipation of our initial pad clear about 6:30 on Sunday evening, and then we'll work our earliest tanking at 11:36 Sunday night. So as you've noticed, as we've moved a couple of weeks here, our launch times have gotten quite a bit earlier than they were the last time. Once we get done with our tanking operation, that lasts about 3 hours, as you recall. We'll send our ground crews into the pad and ready the cockpit for the crew's arrival, which is about 5:30 a.m. on Monday morning. Our launch window this time opens at 8:56 a.m. on Monday, and that does actually correlate to our preferred time. It'll be a few seconds difference there from the actual 8:56:00 time, and we'll do that adjust, but we will be right at the preferred time this time. As far as our launch availability go, we currently have the 16th, which is Monday, as a launch date, through the 26th of May before we would need to stand down for the Soyuz 27S launch, which is out there at the beginning of June. Right in the middle of that campaign there between the 16th and 26th, we do have a planned undock of the Soyuz 25S from the station, which is on the 23rd. And with their undock on the 23rd, that means the 21st as a launch date is not available to us, because that would put our docking and their undocking essentially on the same day. So that date is not available to us as a launch date. And additionally, we're doing working to try to deconflict any issues on the 20th or 22nd, the days on either side of that 21st date, to make sure there's no crew workload issues on the 20th or any relative motions between those other two vehicles on the 22nd. So we're hoping to deconflict both of those and make those available launch dates to us as well. Currently, we have 7 days of liquid hydrogen and 12 days of liquid oxygen PRSD hold times, which are plentiful for us, so we would only have to do one top-off during that entire campaign that I mentioned on those dates. It is a 16-day mission, and there are 0 contingency days and 2 weather days available to us, and that would put our end-of-mission landing on Wednesday, June the 1st at 2:30 or so in the morning. If we had to go an extra day for whatever reason, that would put us at about 1:20 a.m. on Thursday the 2nd. So I just want to say that I am really proud of our teams working so hard over the last couple of weeks, the last 2 weeks. All the teams here at Kennedy and all the other centers have done an outstanding job to get us ready for this launch on a historic and final flight of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Thanks.
Thank you. Joe.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is, like Jeff said, it's good to be back here. We're very proud of the team. Our payloads, AMS, ELC-3 with its ORUs and experiments, the Storm payload and the Missy. We're ready to support this launch. We can't wait. We will start we call our mid-deck waves, because the scrub from the last mission, we went ahead and took out all our research payloads. There were 9 passive and 2 powered, so we removed those, turned them over to the principal investigators. They went through their refurbishment process, and they're back here and ready to support us, and we'll start that upload around 5:30 a.m. on Sunday, and we should finish around a little bit after lunch. So we're excited. There's nothing that we are tracking on the payloads. Everything is in good order, and we look forward to this launch. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy.
Well, the weather has been pretty good the last several days. We have had some isolated thunderstorms inland. Things are going to change a little bit, though, over the next couple of days. We could see some of those thunderstorms get a little bit closer to us on the coast here today, and then tomorrow looks like any inland thunderstorms would migrate towards the coast. So we'll be watching for that. Then on Sunday, we actually have a trough that's going to roll through, and as that does, it could cause some concerns for our RSS retract operations. So it's all going to be about the timing of that trough. By Monday, that front moves off to the east, and we're going to actually clear out by launch time. The weather should all be off to the east and southeast, and so we expect the conditions to improve. We are concerned a little bit about a crosswind at the shuttle landing facility. The winds are across on the SLF, but they are look like right now they're going to be within limits. So right now we're forecasting a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. Looking at the satellite picture, you can see there's a pretty good trough moving in through the Gulf of Mexico right now. That's actually not going to have too much effect on us because we have a strong blocking ridge in the upper levels of our area. But as we get into Sunday, we start what we'll start seeing is an upper level trough dig into the eastern U.S. and a low will actually sit in that area, an upper level low for several days, and so we're going to be trying to time out the troughs associated with the upper level low. And so right now it looks like the one that moves through Sunday will move off by launch time, but then if we happen to delay to Tuesday, then we could see another trough come into the area and affect us again. So let's go ahead and get into our forecast. By tanking time, it looks like that front will be pushed through and off to the south, and we may see some lingering showers in the area, a lot of cloud cover, but not expecting right now predominantly to be forecasting any constraint violations. However, if that trough happened to slow down, then that could cause us some concern. So just in the event that occurred, we did go with a 20% chance of KSC weather prohibiting tanking due to a threat of lightning in the area. For the launch forecast, the weather should be all pushed off to the east and southeast. Winds, though, are expected to be cross 10 gusting to 15. That is not a violation, but it's right on the edge. And so with that, we have a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. There's also an outside chance of some lingering cloud cover on this morning as well. But overall, it looks favorable. For the solid rocket booster recovery forecast, it's going to be a little bit choppy as they go out to the area, but as they get out there and we get to launch time, as that front moves away, the conditions start improving and seas are about 4 to 6 feet. They should decrease through that day while they're out there, and the winds should also start coming down through the day as they're going through their recovery operations, but at launch time about 12 to 18 knots. And then as we go into our abort landing sites in the U.S., Spaceflight Meteorology Group is forecasting good conditions at both Edwards and Northrop Field. It's just a little bit breezy, but not violating any constraints. And for our overseas abort landing sites, Istrus is the only concern. There's a low pressure area off to the east of Istrus and putting a tight pressure gradient over that area. With that, there's a peak wind of 33 knots expected, and that is a headwind violation of 32 knots. So, but Zaragoza and Maroon both look good. If we happen to delay 24 hours, this is where the next trough looks to be timing out to be coming into the area. We didn't get too pessimistic yet on the number. I mean, we went with 40% chance on this day because of the fact that the timing of this is still a little bit uncertain. If it continues to look like it's going to be over the area on Tuesday morning, we may have to up this number tomorrow. Right now we're going with a low cloud ceiling. Winds, a crosswind violation of 230 degrees 12, peaking to 19 knots, and also showers in the area. So with that, right now we're going with a 40% chance on Tuesday morning of KSC weather prohibiting launch. For the abort landing sites in the U.S., weather does look good again. Still a little bit breezy out there, but no violations to any of the constraints. And Spaceflight Meteorology Group is forecasting all 3 TAL sites to be good on Tuesday morning with just scattered skies, and both Zaragoza and Maroon, or just few are scattered. And then at Istrus, just a ceiling at 20,000 feet. No concerns there. If we happen to delay 48 hours, the weather looks to be moving off to the east. And so there's still a little bit of a crosswind concern with winds from the west, 10 peaking to 16 knots. There's also a little concern that, the models might be moving it out too fast, because sometimes they tend to do that with upper level lows. And so with that, we're still keeping a 20% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. For the abort landing sites in the U.S. on day 3, the weather looks good at both locations. And Spaceflight Meteorology Group's forecasting 3 good TAL sites also on day 3. And so overall, we have a 30% chance on Monday morning of KSC weather prohibiting launch, and we have 2 good TAL sites.
Thank you. We'll now take questions. When the microphone comes your way, please state your name, affiliation, and to whom you're addressing your question. We'll start with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. 2 questions for Jeff. The first is, do you have any kind of early crowd count on how many people you're expecting Monday morning?
We don't have any real specifics. We are expecting probably slightly less than before, just due to the timing and the middle of the week type of a launch, Monday not being necessarily the middle, but a weekday versus where we were on a Friday afternoon. They were anticipating somewhere around 700,000 before. It probably may be down closer to about 500,000 or so this time. Those are all rough estimates, obviously, but right now it should be slightly less, I think, than it was last time.
And are you any closer to having a root cause to what went wrong 2 weeks ago, or is that still under analysis?
Well, what we did was when we went through all of the analysis of all the different portions of the system, we came down to the most likely culprit on the event, which was a thermostat that we saw some high current on in testing that we didn't notice at the time, because it was during the testing it kind of got filtered in with the normal cycling of the heater itself. But we saw that back in last year in June when we were doing some testing on this particular heater thermostat on the S12B, and we saw a current spike that lasted for a very, very short period of time, but it was 18 amps or so. That could induce the event that we saw as far as the driver inside of the box not working properly, and it was actually we had some things that were blown inside of there as far as the hybrid driver goes. So right now that looks like it's the main culprit. All of the other ones that were involved with the discussion that could be potential candidates were far less likely than this one. And so that's where we were probably going to end up, and when we went through the UA board and the discussions at the PRCB, and that's what we came down to.
That thermostat is out, right?
Yes, we did change out that one, and we have checked out the new one, and it's functioning perfectly.
Okay. Ken.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Spaceflight Magazine. For Jeff, please, I think. Are there any heating checks of that heater earlier in the countdown, so you would know before T-minus 4 hours or so? And also, I'm wondering about the RSS retract. How long do we have in case you have to delay it again because of bad weather like the first time? And how close were we last time to being at the end of that possibility? Thank you.
Let's see. The first part of the question, we only have one additional difference or delta that we're going to do in the count associated with the heaters. We normally start out on that particular heater string before we get into our external tanking. And it's during that time frame that you would expect to see the heater cyclings as the temperature in the aft fuselage goes down and it gets to a certain set point, then you would expect the heaters to be cycling at that point. We will get that data and see that the heaters are functioning appropriately. We'll do one additional check. We're going to swap over to the A-string heaters, which we normally do not do, and that's kind of the delta that we're going to do. Just do one final check on that side as well to make sure we have full redundancy on both systems, and then we'll switch back to the B side, and that'll be during tanking that we'll do that. So that's only one additional item that we're doing. The rest we kind of get as we go through the operation, because you will be able to identify very readily that the heaters are either functioning or they're not. And then the second part of that was on the rotating service structure retract. As Kathy mentioned, we do expect some weather on Sunday. Last time we were almost 5 hours late, as you may recall, in getting that, and because we had a pretty good heads up on the weather, we were able to pull quite a bit of work in from the backside of that operation and do it earlier, which allowed us to get ahead of at least the bow wave of work that would normally occur on the backside of the RSS. We were very close to not getting to on-time tanking. Certainly we can tank a little bit late and not disrupt our launch time. But we were able to make it at the end through a valiant effort by all the folks that were involved with that operation. I don't like to say that 5 hours is a standard number, because it is not by any means that we could go that late and make it each and every time. But because of the way things lined up and we were able to get in and do some of the different things that we did, it worked out that we were able to do it at that time. Generally about 4 is our limit. And we are looking right now at where the weather lies and what additional work we can, again, kind of resequence to make sure if we come up on that same scenario that we've done as much as we can prior to the RSS, so we have less to do afterwards. So we're trying to at least manage the weather a little bit from that perspective.
Bill.
Bill Harwood, CBS for Jeff. Just a clarification of your answer to Marcia. The thermostat in question was an exposed conductor, I think you guys found, right?
Exposed conductor on the thermostat, which most likely led to the event which caused the current spike that they saw on the thermostat.
Right, and then that was my real question. The most likely cause, you guys haven't been able to prove that. It's still an unexplained anomaly at
Correct,
this point.
and that's why but right now it's still the most likely candidate, but it is unexplained because not all of the data said that was in fact the culprit, but certainly there's an awful lot of data that's there that says it is.
Okay. James.
James Dean with Florida Today. Jeff, you got some unusual launch windows. It looks like on Monday, I think it's only 5 minutes for flight day 3 rendezvous, and I think it's that way like every other day, but not every day. Could you just explain like why is that, and is that more of a challenge when you have a shorter window like that, I guess?
It's not more of a challenge. We normally don't use the first part of the window. As you know, we generally launch it preferred. We have that ability to launch it window open, which normally is around 10 minutes in length. We do occasionally, as we go through the cycle, end up on these days where we have minimum phasing angle, meaning the station is a lot closer to going right overhead at the time of our launch. So the amount of phasing that we have to do to get in the same plane as with the station as we're going up the hill is far less. And so as a result of that, your window, the first part of your window, you no longer have. So it comes down to steering and a lot of the other things. But we will at this point have the 5 minutes or even longer, based on some other parameters as well that the JSC MOD folks are managing. They may actually give us more than 5 minutes, but we will be almost right at the preferred launch time as we plan to our window open time, and that number will get slightly larger each day as far as the difference between window open and the preferred time. Probably won't see it. It'll be in the noise because it'll generally be in seconds, but it does tend to cycle that way as the station continues to go overhead.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Ken, you have a follow-up?
Yes. For Jeff again, I'm just wondering about this May 21 launch window cutout.
Mm-hmm.
That rendezvous is what, on flight day 3? Is there any possibility to do a flight day 4 rendezvous and recover that as a window?
Well, right now
for
the
launch?
program is not electing to use any of our flight day 4s because they want to protect the mission content on this mission because there's an awful lot to do on it. And by going to flight day 4, you lose a day of mission content. And so that was undesirable to them to want to do that, and they would rather hold off on a day at this point on that particular day than lose a mission day on orbit.
That will conclude today's Countdown status briefing. Please join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time here live on NASA television for the STS-134 pre-launch news conference. For more information on the upcoming mission and crew, visit www.nasa.gov/shuttle. Thank you.